Hey, welcome to our second post on the book of Proverbs as we do our daily Bible reading. This week, January 3rd through the 10th, we'll be covering obviously Proverbs chapters 3 through 10. What we'll do is we'll finish up this week what is basically the introduction to the book of Proverbs. These first 9 chapters are laid out in such a way that oftentimes it's the father counseling his young son and setting the stage for the whole book of Proverbs, telling him, listen carefully, be wise, heed the advice that I'm giving you. This is the same counsel and advice I got from my father when I was young. And so the father's passing on this information, a lot of information to his young son about sexual matters of staying pure, how to stay pure, but a variety of other subjects as well. But chapter 10 next week, it really changes the book of Proverbs. Chapters 10 through through chapter 30 are going to be just a series of almost singular verses on different subjects. It gets to be a little bit overwhelming sometimes. That's why we're only reading a chapter a day, because it's like it changes subjects every single verse, or every couple of verses sometimes. They'll be together, a grouping. But usually, in these first 9 chapters, you'll find segments or paragraphs of material that the father is counseling his young son and giving him this advice and counsel as to what to do. A few verses that might really jump out at you in this passage, in this section this week as you're reading. First of all would be from chapter 3, verses 5 and 6. I talked about it Sunday morning in the sermon. Trust in the Lord your God with all of your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Verse 6 says to seek his will in all that you do, and he will show you which path to take. So there's great promise in this as well as an encouragement. Don't lean on your own understanding. Don't rely just on what you think or what you feel, but rather trust in God. Put your confidence and your trust in God. And as we talked about it, if you haven't heard it, I'd encourage you to go back and listen to last week's sermon on reasons why we should trust God. And the missing passage, or the wrong passage that I gave in the sermon was Psalm 137. It should be Psalm 139, that God knows you completely, and yet still he cares about you and provides for you. So one other passage in chapter 4 and verse 7, and it's on the front of your Proverbs book, it says to get knowledge. That's the most important thing, or the NLT translated and it says get knowledge. That's the wisest thing you can do. So again, that's our focus, is getting wisdom, learning how to be wise and use that wisdom in our relationships with one another, our relationship with God, how to get along at work, what to do in different situations, how to avoid problems. And of course, our focus this month in January is fools, how not to be one. So as you read, continue to look for that counsel of how not to be a fool. Highlight that in some way and use that for an encouragement. So thanks for joining us this week. Join us next week for our Proverbs Post on week 3, and we'll look at the next segment, talk about it just a little bit.